Hi, everybody. Welcome to our first ever fellowship and our first ever fellowship presentation. So this is really exciting because this is really the first time we've, at least in my memory, have done this, and especially doing it in the middle of everybody quarantining at home. It's been a fun experience, but everybody has been amazing to work with, and we've had a lot of fantastic people helping along the way. So just to take a second to describe how we conceived of the fellowship and what we were trying to execute on. And just to introduce myself, I'm Marika Jackson. I'm one of the co-directors of Code for Philly, and kind of championed this happening because I had a lot of civic spirit and too much free time. So we would like to take a moment just to thank our generous sponsor, Comcast, who very quietly just gave us some money, and because they thought we were doing good work, and allowed us to start this program and pay people to get some experience in the tech industry to jumpstart their careers. The fellowship essentially breaks down to, we had 3 roles. We had a front-end developer fellow, a product or project manager fellow, which a lot of PMs will bristle at the idea of those being combined. But in Code for Philly, neither of them is actually true. We had and also a production engineer or DevOps fellow. The fellow was asked to work 10 hours a week for 8 weeks. This was to give them some paid work experience in a technical team setting. I have personally had experience where the work that I've done for Code for Philly has not necessarily counted as work experience when I've applied for new jobs. And I figured this would be a good way of sidestepping for new folks trying to get into the industry. They can say this was actually a paid job. I was hired to do this. We wanted to do this specifically to elevate people, give them opportunities to step into leadership positions that would make leadership at tech companies more diverse, have more diverse voices and more diverse policies. This fellowship also came with a lot of career development opportunities, specifically Vicky Boykis of Normcore Tech, and also who works at Automatic, came and talked to us about writing. Viral Trivedi at Toastmasters came and talked about speaking, and Rufino Velasquez at my company Abstract actually allowed people to send them their resumes, and he gave them feedback as he is one of our recruiters. We had a lot of people apply. We had, I think, about 110 applicants to the 3 roles, and so we had to figure out how are we going to create a method of scoring who is most qualified and who would benefit the most. So we chose these 6 questions to understand and kind of figure out this person meets the most areas that we were looking for. So we wanted people who would directly benefit from the fellowship, who maybe would not have had other opportunities available to them. We were looking for people who had current tech skills and who also were ready to learn other skills and make contributions to our specific projects. We also needed people who could fit within the schedules of our mentors, because our mentors are actually also volunteering. We were looking for people who would bring some more diverse voices to Code for Philly. We're always looking for more diverse people to come and help direct what we're doing and work on any of our projects. We're always looking for people to come into the leadership team. So we wanted people who could help build diversity within our own group. And we were looking for people who are actually specifically excited to do some good for their community. And we wanted people who were also collaborative. Everybody who's working on our projects is a volunteer. They're all doing this from the goodness of their heart and possibly also their love of tech. So having people coming with a collaborative standpoint actually makes our projects run more smoothly. We had 3 wonderful people working as our mentors who will be introducing and talking about their experience. Mikey was working on the working as the front-end mentor, and also has been essentially technically leading our Prevention Point project. Christopher Henderson was the mentor for the Production Engineering Fellow and works at Comcast, and is also definitely one of our big cheerleaders and helps get us stuff like funds to pay for this program. And he also was working on helping with the Prevention Point project. And Brittany Anderson was working with the product management, project management fellow with some assists from me. And the fellow was breaking up her time between the Prevention Point project and the Philly Bail Fund project. So that's where it's and me, Marika, at the bottom. You already know what I look like. We also had some amazing people working to create the fellowship and manage it, namely Rich, who you may recognize as being a former co-director of Code for Philly and is now our senior advisor and helper in remembering that we actually have to like know how much money we have and stuff. All of these ads are their Twitter handles if you want to find them on Twitter. Pam actually worked to develop all of the curriculum for the career development path. She contacted Vicki, she got Viral, and she has been an amazing resource for the fellows through the whole period, and also helpful to us in terms of making sure we've defined everything. So I'm gonna turn it over to Mikey to talk about his experience and to introduce our front-end fellow. Thanks for coming. Mikey, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. It says I can't start my video, but
oh, well, I will fix that. But you could start talking.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess the two things I was like, why am I doing this, and who my fellow was. So I'll start with why I like to be a mentor, and it forces me to know that I know things, which is you know, if I'm trying to disseminate information, I should know what I'm talking about. And of course, giving back to the community, because Code for Philly, I think, has allowed me to grow as a software developer a ton. And I'm grateful for this organization. And then also Philly more generally, just trying to reach out to the wider Philly world. I got my notes. And then, yeah, I think also it's just like software is really cool. And it's awesome to like kind of like take some time to like discuss and ponder over things and really like think about and talk about what's going on instead of just kind of like the bullet points and then and so forth. You know, and then of course the you know, working asynchronously is like, and over video is like inside the nested parentheses, you gotta like be very descriptive. Yeah, so I think it's really interesting to like just discuss code from a, you know, someone with people who actually care about it. So my fellow for the front-end developer fellowship was Giannis, and I really enjoyed working with him because I think he's super passionate about learning and sitting down and working things out. And he was super punctual and communicative. He was always on time and ready to go whenever, or like communicated, you know, throughout the week if we needed to talk. So I really appreciated that, because I think that's something I can maybe learn from him, perhaps. And then of course he like asks questions, which is important, and it shows that he's not just, you know, he's interested. And I think also like he's dedicated to helping people. He's a full-time teacher at the moment, which is hard. And you know, I won't talk, you know, I won't over talk him maybe, but he's seen bad software at his job, so I think it inspires him to maybe write good software. So that's awesome. So I hope you enjoy listening to him, and I was super happy to work with Giannis.
Giannis, you ready? You can tell me to switch slides when you're ready.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see me, if you can hear me. Like I cannot see myself on this. So hi everyone. My name is Yanis, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about my journey with Code for Philly. A little thing that I call from teaching to coding. Marek, if you can go to the next one. Um, this is me, and I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, a very brief introduction. So I was born and raised in Greece, and that's why the weird name. Um, you're gonna see Ioannis, but people call me Yannis. It's like Jonathan and John kind of thing. Ioannis is super formal in Greek, and it sounds very, very weird to me. So I like everybody to call me Yannis. I moved to the US from Greece about 10 years ago, and I moved here to be a teacher, an elementary teacher. I'm currently living and working in Wilmington, Delaware. I'm living with my husband and my dog, Apollo, who you can see in the picture. And we are in Wilmington. I used to live in Philadelphia, actually. I used to live in South Philly in the Point Breeze area. But I moved to Wilmington to be closer to my current job. But this is about to change. We recently sold our house and we are looking to move back to Philly or a little bit closer to it. So as I mentioned, I currently work as an elementary educator. I work at the charter school here in Wilmington in an immersion setting. My current role is to be a world languages teacher. So I'm teaching in modern Greek, and I've also have taught in Spanish in a variety of ages. Currently, I'm doing second grade. For various reasons, though, some of them Mikey mentioned them. I did want to switch from teaching to something else. And the main reason why I did this is because I'm really passionate about learning. I may be a teacher, but I always want to be a student as well. And I felt that in my current career, I reached that point where I didn't receive any new information. I felt kind of stagnant. So I was also looking for opportunities to do things online and remotely because one of my passions is traveling, and living in between the United States and Greece, it's hard. So I wanted a job that actually is going to challenge me, but it will allow me to work remotely as well. And somebody proposed programming, coding. So I tried it by myself with some free online resources, and I discovered that I really liked it. I liked it so much that I decided that I wanted to pursue it professionally. So I enrolled and I completed a coding bootcamp offered by the University of Pennsylvania. So I'm currently trying to break into tech, and I was very, very lucky to find Code for Philly in one of my online searches, and I was blessed to be one of the fellows here. And one little fun fact about me is that I love Star Wars and Lego. This was one of my. I have a huge Lego Star Wars collection, so I do see coding as building with building blocks. So there are some kind of some similarities there, and I really enjoy that. Marika, if we can go to the next slide. So a little bit about the project that I was involved with. As Marika mentioned, I was the front-end fellow for the Prevention Point. And Prevention Point is a project that benefits North Philly, is a needle exchange nonprofit organization. They're doing a fantastic job in the North Philly area, and I was very, very lucky to work for them to contribute a little bit to that. I was actually familiar with Prevention Point before I started working for them through Code for Philly. My husband is actually in public health, and he currently is working for a non-profit organization. So we are involved into non-profits. We are familiar with lots of them in the area. we are donors, and I was super excited when I found out that there is an organization out there called Code for Philly that benefits them by providing a web developer for this organization. So I was very excited to apply for that. The purpose of the project, what we are building for them, it's a web app that allows the organization to store and manage data of the participants of the program. So I was informed that before Code for Philly stepped in, they would use Excel spreadsheets, for example, to keep on their data, and they needed to modernize a little bit. And the people from Code for Philly were kind enough to offer their services. So this project has been going on for around 2 years, but it's almost complete. And I was very, very lucky to at least catch it in the like final stages of its completion. The project is organized, the web app, let's say, it's organized into two parts. There is one admin page that allows people to, let's say, subscribe as administrators, and the data management page, as I like to call it, where these administrators can go in and insert, store, and manage data of the participants of the program. Some of the technologies that are used is Python for the back end, React.js for the front end, the thing that I used mostly. Well, I wouldn't say most, I would say exclusively for this program. Material UI is the CSS framework to style the app. And Docker, which honestly I wasn't familiar with until I started working with Code for Philly. So me personally, I was involved in the front end part of the development. I was working with React.js, as I said, exclusively, and the tickets that I received were about React.js. Marika, if we can go to the next one. So how the fellowship worked for me? What we would do is, first of all, I got assigned to this project, and I also got assigned a mentor, which was the wonderful Mr. Mikey Manoguera. I would work very close with my mentor. And in my mind, there were two major parts of the fellowship. There was the coding part, where you actually learn, like how to improve your coding skills, like how to participate in a large project like that. And there were also the career related sessions, which I'm gonna get into more detail in a second. So in order for the fellowship to be completed successfully, I had to complete a series of weekly tickets for 8 weeks, participate in those career sessions, and also attend weekly meetings with the entire team. At the end of the fellowship, I also had to submit a blog post about what I've learned and my journey with Code for Philly, and also the final presentation that we are currently doing. So I'm going to talk a little bit first about the career related part. So if we divided, let's say that this covered like 20% of the fellowship, was the coding part was like 80% of it. I would say more or less. In the career related part, I had to attend live Zoom sessions with industry professionals. As Marika mentioned in the introduction of this presentation, and they would talk to us about soft skills that we will need in our profession. So since we had to do a blog post and then a live presentation of what we learned, the organization thought, what better things to talk about, like blog posting, writing, and public speaking. So they invited professionals to talk to us about these two items, and it was very, very informative. Like I haven't had anything like that while I was doing my my boot camp. And as Marika also mentioned, I received resume feedback because, like I have written my resume for educational purposes, but now I had to write a new resume tailored for the tech industry. And that was quite challenging because I've never done anything like that before. So receiving feedback from a professional, an HR professional this is his job, actually, it was very, very valuable to me. We also, during my one-on-one meetings with Mikey, with my mentor, we also talked about my repo and my online portfolio. He checked them out and he gave me very valuable feedback about these two items as well. What I can do particularly, like to improve those things. We also talk about strategies on how to maximize the efficiency of my job search and be successful in it. And he also offered some resources on, like how to look for a job more efficiently. But above else, and I left the best for last, it was the emotional support that I felt from all these people. Like from the first moment, I felt super welcome. I was very, very hesitant to do this because I'm very green with tech. I wasn't considering myself to be a developer, to tell you the truth, at the beginning. Like the imposter syndrome was constantly right next to me, and Marika and Mikey and everybody made me feel very welcomed and made me feel valuable as well in the process. So um, having these people to talk to and having people that they were in a similar journey like me was was amazing to have that support, that kind of support. If we can go to the next slide. So a little bit about the coding part of my fellowship. As I mentioned before, I would be assigned weekly tickets. Sometimes it may be one ticket, sometimes it may be two, depending on the complexity, let's say, of the issue. And we started with, like very light things to test a little bit the waters, and the complexity would gradually become, they would become a little bit harder. So my job would be to work on the ticket throughout the week by myself, and then during our one-on-one session with my mentor, with Mikey, we would talk about it. Like what have I accomplished by myself? What did I need more help with? Mikey would also provide his insight on how to improve my code. We also had weekly meetings with the whole team of the project that I attended, and like I was in I was fed up with the rest of the team, and I would see what they were doing. I was also very fortunate to be present in the presentation to the client. Like the prevention point people came and we actually presented the progress that the team made on the project. So I was, like, it was the first time that I saw something like that. It was the first time that I saw the interaction between the client and the developer. Got a taste a little bit to see what being a real developer felt like. So that was very exciting to me as well. And I would constantly have the support of my mentor. I would be in constant contact with Mikey via Slack. We had our weekly sessions. Sometimes we had more than once per week. Like I would bug him all the time with questions, and he was extremely helpful, because I did ask a lot of questions and I did want to improve my developing skills. So he was always there by my side to do so. If we could go to the next slide. So these are some of the examples of the issues that I resolved, the issues that were assigned to me. At the beginning, for example, as I told you, we started very, very light. I had to add some additional information to the table of each of the participants of the program. For example, along with the first name and the last name, I would have to add the maiden name or the SEP ID. SEP, I think, stands for Syringe Exchange Program ID. So I would have to add all this information. Improve the app's responsive design, like when the app, when we minimize it, some of the things had to be non-visible. Improve it, let's say, for more mobile devices. One of the most exciting things that I did was error handling. So along with Maki, we created a component in React.js for the improvement of error handling, how to serve, like errors that the user may encounter while they were using the app. And of course, we use the Material UI Snapback API to present those errors to the user. And the last thing that kind of started doing was testing, which honestly I was not very familiar with, but I'm super excited to explore. So I started writing some tests using just the React test library and Enzyme. If you can go to the next slide, Marika. So some of the topics, like throughout our weekly discussions and working on these tickets, there would be some topics of discussion that me and Mikey had. And the first one that I put there is Git. Git was the bane of my existence at the beginning. It was so hard for me to comprehend because coming out of a boot camp, 90% of the times you work by yourself. There were very few times that I had to collaborate with other people. And even those collaborative projects that we did, we were taught a specific way to use the Git and that's it. So I've never had, I've never used, for example, Git rebase. I've never resolved Git issues by myself. So I needed a lot of work for that and around that. And Maki helped me a lot. We also talked about object-oriented programming, which is like a big thing with front developer and React. Mobex, which is an alternative to Redux for state handling. We talked about callback functions, as I told you. We talked about job sorting strategies, and I'm going to insist on that. Above all, I had emotional support. Marty was there for me, reassuring me for the entire time. If we can go to the next slide, Marika. So here are my next steps. I'm gonna keep looking a job as a front-end developer, and I'm very excited to say that I had an interview yesterday and I had another interview today. And I was so glad that I did the Code for Philly Fellowship because that gave me a topic to discuss with those recruiters. So like with other developers, people are very curious, like to what's Code for Philly, what did you do with them? And it honestly it offered me paid experience, which like coming out of education I had none. So it's super valuable. It was super valuable to me, and I felt this on these interviews that I had. I would also like to keep volunteering in the project, finishing with the fellowship. I don't want this to end. I would like to see this completed. I feel extremely proud and I feel extremely fortunate that I'm working on this project. So I would like to keep working on it. And one final plan is, as I told you, I recently sold my house, and one of our plans is to travel around the country in an RV. And when we were doing the blog posting, the writing session, the presenter was so nice. He was so informative. She kind of got me excited of like starting a blog, but I wouldn't know what to write about. So traveling around the country in an RV and becoming, from a teacher, becoming a developer, these are two things that I'm excited about. So I would love to start blogging about them and, use the knowledge that I gained from this program to do something like that. Yeah, so these are my next steps. I would like to thank everyone that organized this program. It was such a great and valuable experience. I am grateful from the bottom of my heart, and a special thanks to Mikey Manoguera for putting up with my questions and holding my hand throughout the whole process and making me a better developer. Thank you so much.
Ioannis, thank you that the other co-director, Michael Chow, is here. And we were just talking about how this might be the best presentation we've ever had. Well, at least in terms of making us feel like we're not just yelling into the wind. But,
oh my God, no, not at all. You should be very, very proud for this.
Well,
this can only go up from here. This can only get better. So I'm very, very proud that I was, like the first to do it, and I hope that you guys continue to do it. It's such a valuable experience for somebody like me.
Well, my teacher used to say that we're all just standing on the shoulders of our teachers. So it's just time for us to have someone on our shoulders, because someone did it for us.
That's true.
So I would actually like to open it up to any of our attendees if they want to ask Ioannis any questions. You should all be able to unmute at your own discretion. But I guess anybody doesn't have any questions. Oh, yeah, please go for it, Michael. Butler, we have several Michaels.
Hey, Giannis. First of all, thank you for sharing your remarkable journey with us. The pivot from education to coding and tech on paper seems like it would be a little bit more of a fluid one. And from hearing your presentation, it was not quite as fluid as one would have imagined. What was the biggest lesson you think you've learned from, Mikey and the Covert Philly team during this journey?
The biggest lesson would be, to believe in myself, I would say. Like as I told you, starting this journey, I had a lot of doubts. First of all, I didn't believe that I was going to be selected of one of the fellows. As Marika said, there were hundreds of people that applied, and only 3 of us got selected. So that was an honor and a merit to itself. But even when I started, I had my doubts about myself. So it was really refreshing to have people that supported me in this way. And one of the main things that I take away is that I do have to believe in myself as a developer, let's say. So I have to consider myself to be a developer. Nobody can be perfect in anything, and especially in a field like tech, which is so vast and it's so rapidly growing. You have to keep learning, you have to keep improving yourself. But if you do that, then you can consider yourself to be a successful developer, and that's what I'm taking with me, from this experience.
So thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions? Sweet. All right, Ioannis, thank you so much. That was so great. Oh, you get both of us. We're both clapping for you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Brittany Anderson to talk about our project and product management fellow, who she very lovingly and wonderfully mentored, and her experience as a
I've had so many different experiences throughout tech in the last 5 or so years since, and plus 4 years in college as well. So I just feel like I have, kind of different perspectives to be able to share, and I love watching people learn and grow. And I love.
Release, but we just.
Oh, someone's off mute. So yeah, so I wanted to really, give back and, hopefully share some experiences that can really change someone's perspective on product and project management, because it is really a kind of weird field. I mean, it's not really talked about, especially as much, especially in technology, because technology is very unique in terms of project management. First of all, it's, fairly new. Second of all, people in tech are different than people in operations and business and things like that. So it's really kind of a different, unique, little niche group of roles. So yeah, I was really excited. And when I heard about this program, I definitely thought that it could really fit with the Philly Bail Fund project, as it's kind of a new project and we still are figuring out exactly how the project and product management of it works. And I was really looking for someone who had an understanding of kind of how people work and had an interest in learning about how to project management for a technology project, especially in this environment where things aren't as crystal clear. I thought it was just a really good place for learning as you go, something kind of shifting. It's not very straightforward, which I think is really good for someone who just wants to get into it, because it's kind of every project's different. So to get that, project experience where something's just starting and getting its feet, I think is kind of a really good way to put yourself into the weeds right away. So we had Sarah as our awesome mentee or fellow. Sorry, that's the right term. And yeah, I really, liked the background of, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, but the kind of psychology of people background from Penn. And let me check my notes too. So someone else said they had notes. I just started jotting stuff down too, so don't forget something. Oh yeah, so someone with organizational skills, and so it was a great experience. Some of the projects worked on were a lot of stuff involving new volunteers and just kind of documenting the whole project. So we had a glossary and we had a project update, as well as working on our GitHub. So yeah, I thought it went really well, and I'm excited to see the slides. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brittany. And thank you everyone at Code for Philly and Comcast for making this possible. It was a really great learning experience, and it was really amazing to work with Brittany, and also Marika was my other mentor. If you could go to the next slide. A little bit about myself. I'm from the Philadelphia area. I was born in Philly, went to Penn, have been here. I'm very proud to be from here. And as Brittany mentioned, my background is in psychology and statistics and social justice. And a lot of what interests me is giving back to my community. And I thought that Code for Philly blended really well with my values and what I'm looking for in my career. And like Brittany mentioned, my background is in organizational psychology. And as I entered the workforce, tried to get my footing in the public sector and was working a lot with data and realized that there's a lot missing in terms of tech literacy. And so at the start of the pandemic, I ended up losing my job and was really reevaluating what I wanted my life and career to look like, and decided to search out opportunities that would allow me to expand upon my own tech literacy and be able to blend tech and the public sphere and work on projects that create a social impact. And so right now, my part-time job that I was also doing with this fellowship, I am a data analyst for the City of Austin through AmeriCorps. And afterward, I'm looking to continue working in tech. And a little bit about me, I love cooking and I live right by the Schuylkill River Trail. So I jog there almost every single day. You could go to the next slide. So I worked on 2 projects, the first one being Prevention Point, as Giannis greatly talked about. It's a nonprofit public health organization that does harm reduction services in Philly and the surrounding area. And the goal of the project was to create a reporting system for their syringe exchange program. My mentor on this project was Marika, and a lot of the work that I did was following up with tickets on Git and writing tickets on Git, which Mikey also helped me with. And a large portion of my project was writing user documentation for the final tool and writing up. And this is what I wrote my blog post on, best strategies for doing so, and how it is super important and relevant, even in the public sphere as well, to be able to translate technical work to a broader audience. If you go to the next slide. I also worked with Brittany on the Philly Bail Fund, which is a revolving fund that posts bail for people who cannot afford it in Philadelphia, and also acts as an advocacy agency to end cash bail in Philadelphia. And the goal of this project is to scrape new criminal filings that are posted every single day for new cases and dockets that have more information on bail and the magistrates who set them, to extract data and paint a broader picture on what bail looks like in Philadelphia. And so my work on this project was also to follow up on tickets on Git, update the project board, post project updates, updating project documents. So like Brittany was talking about, I wrote up and reformatted the volunteer or new volunteer information sheet, and help to create a where the project is now update for the broader Code for Philly community. And I'm also looking to continue helping now that we have scraped a lot of the dockets, the new criminal filings, on data analysis, and hoping to continue working as a part of that team as well. Next slide. A couple of different topics that I discussed with my mentors was PMing strategies. So thinking about consistency, transparency, rewarding and recognizing hard work, especially in a volunteer organization. Everyone is committing their free time to this project. So I was able to learn just how important it is to be personable and approachable and manage a lot of different moving parts, and did this with Git, as Giannis mentioned. I had never worked with Git before, but it was really important, and I'm using it in my current work now. So I'm very glad to have learned how to use it. Also talked about career paths and goals, and just thinking ahead what my career trajectory looks like and what PMing actually is, because like what Brittany said, it's not really talked about, and especially coming from a psych background, I didn't even know that it existed until this past year. So it was really valuable to be able to see a viable choice for me to move into that I think that I could perform well in. And also job search strategies, the Philly tech scene. I learned through Marika that the Philly tech scene lives on Slack, and was able to connect with a lot of different people through there and start conversations about what the tech scene looks like in Philly and what people are working on, what's new and what's exciting. Next slide. So the next steps for me, I'm hoping to keep volunteering on both of my projects. I've really enjoyed working with both teams, and it has been an incredibly valuable experience to work with people so passionate about what they do, and the time that they commit to these projects has been really valuable and energizing to be a part of and watch. I recently got a fellowship with Compass Red with Marika's help, and I will be working on COVID adjacent problems through CARES Act funding, and that is to end in February. So at that point in time, I will be applying for product management and potentially data analyst positions. So thank you everyone who has been involved and has helped develop this program and help me along the way. I am incredibly grateful, and like Yana said, from the bottom of my heart, very glad that I found this and applied for it, and thanks.
Yay! I actually have a question for you. And one of the reasons we added a PM and a DevOps specifically was it's really difficult to get experience doing those roles until you have done those roles. And then it's difficult to get the role because you have no experience in those roles. So if you were talking to someone about working in as a PM, what would you give them as advice in terms of being able to get that experience?
I think that is a really great point that you make. And that's something that I discovered as well. I think advice that I would give is just talk to people who are doing it and suss out what soft skills and hard skills you need to break into that. And I think just sharing interests and brainstorming with them is very valuable and something that has really helped me personally.
Yeah, and I just want to add to what Marika said about experiences. Also with PM, it's not really something that you can really understand until you do it, because once you are the project manager or product manager, you just kind of feel that pressure and ownership, which is, good, both, good, but also can be stressful. But at the same time, so like, when you are interviewing for jobs and positions without actually having that, experience of being the one in charge of a project, it's really, I could see how it's hard to get, start off with those jobs. So I'm glad to see that Sarah learned a lot during this. So hopefully that'll help her with roles.
Does anybody else have any questions they'd like to ask Sarah? Oh, yes, Chris.
Hi, hello, Sarah. Wonderful presentation. Fantastic to learn about your journey and development in this way. You focused on transparency and communication, and I see correlation between that and learning Git, a tool that can be so helpful for understanding how code goes from development to production. How did you begin the process of learning Git?
Yeah, so I think I just started on Google and just watched a couple of different videos and asked questions of my mentors and just really watched them and how they used it, I think. So a combination of watching videos and observation was how I learned.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Let me make sure. Okay. Awesome. Well, excellent. I'm so excited that you get to work with Patrick Callahan, and also mildly jealous because he's the nicest tech person in Philly. And good luck. And we are excited. We'll take any documentation you want to give us. So next up, we have Christopher Henderson talking about being a mentor for the production engineering fellow and also what drew him to work on it. Chris, you there?
Yes, I am. How's it going, Marika? And I want to applaud everybody that's spoken so far. This was kind of like, in the simplest terms, kind of dream come true for what I've been trying to do with folks in the tech community. And one of the things that got this started was I shared this passion with my coworkers at Comcast. And just to give a little bit of background, the story behind it is my relationship to the company that I worked for as I grew up in Philadelphia was like the logo on my bill. And I wanted to change that relationship with the community. And one of the things I focused on was this out of the tower and into the streets. And what that means is we can give back to the community in many different ways. And we can give it through monetary support programs. But the one main thing that's really important is time, because we're humans. And together, when we share time and we, have this discussion and this relationship with one another, we start developing those soft skills, those hard skills. And I have the benefit of being able to work with so many great people, and also contribute to Code for Philly and, enjoy the company, that I wanted to share that with everybody. And I was like, I need some type of structure. I presented it to leadership at work. We onboarded a bunch of Comcasters to help with the COVID-19 project, one of the major software projects that came out to help for capacity planning earlier this year, and kind of has benefited Philadelphia and why we've been able to keep our numbers down and also plan ahead. And as we saw the benefit of that, we saw Comcasters are developing for open source. Open source community is benefiting. I also had other companies lending their help into bringing in their expertise, all for the greater good of humanity. And then you can say like, these Comcasters aren't that bad. They're actually very helpful. So everybody works together. Everybody benefits from this. And I'm so happy to see Sarah. I'm so happy to see Giannis and my mentee, Robert, benefit from this first round. And, we're going to keep pushing this. If you've ever sat around and listened to me, I'm very passionate about getting education to everybody and building the gaps shorting the gaps and filling them in and bridging them so that we can have, folks doing more at the keyboard and enabling themselves. So, the benefit of this for me is the experience of seeing what other difficulties other people have had trying to get into this. And I'm always trying to put myself in someone else's shoes. And what better way to do that than let them watch them learn and ask questions and help them get to that point. So Robert Ritchie, was my mentee, and he basically was working with me on the back end components of Prevention Point. And I kind of took an approach where I wanted Robert, or Bob, as it likes to be called, to start with the basics and work his way up to a place he was most comfortable with. He's going to share a little bit of his background and his uniqueness, and for me, that was very unique to me, and it was a learning journey for both of us as we built the back end together, and we got into pitfalls and we got into areas that were difficult, and we sat down together and tried to remedy it. And those are the type of skills and those are the type of collaboration that we need, especially in this climate. The type of asynchronous work that needs to go into these types, and being able to, even though we're not physically with one another, being able to execute and do this well. So with that all in mind, with all that context and background, the more important folks like Bob will speak now, and he will share his journey with you all. And I want to thank everyone for attending. This is, like I said, I have more in store for us for the future. I'm working on that. I'm bringing this kind of to light with leadership at Comcast. And I'm going to continue down this journey, and keep your eyes peeled and your ears open for more in the future. So Bob, take it away.
All right. Can we hear me okay? All right. Yeah, my name is Robert Ritchie. I do typically go by Bob. And I spent the last 8 weeks being the DevOps fellow at Code for Philly. You can go to the next slide. A little bit about me. I'm a lifelong resident of Warminster, Pennsylvania, so not terribly far away, mostly north and a little bit east of the city. I do possess a rusty master's in computer science, which I completed in 2018. Unfortunately, have not gotten the opportunity to put that to use yet in a professional capacity, but looking forward to doing so. This fellowship was meant to be a big jumping off point for me in that regard. I did come in with a vague notion of what DevOps is, and when I say vague, I mean before my interview for the fellowship, I was watching YouTube videos titled "What is DevOps?" You know that sort of thing. So it was a word I had heard, but no experience with it whatsoever. Just a general idea of what it is, and I do possess a love-hate relationship with assistive technology. I do happen to be a quadriplegic, meaning that I have at least some degree of paralysis in all 4 limbs as well as my torso. I am a wheelchair user, and while I have good use of my arms, I do not possess use of my fingers. So I do a little bit of typing with my knuckles, but anything longer, email, writing papers, coding, which is a challenge, I do primarily with dictation. And the love side of that comes from the fact that it exists and people have put the work in to create it and make it so people such as myself can use a computer and be productive in a way that is healthy and sustainable. And the hate side comes from the fact that while this stuff is out there and works, it has a ways to go. There are many ways it can be improved, and access to the accessible technology can be improved as well, both the hardware and the software, in terms of rooting it out online and then hurdles actually obtaining it, such as cost. Excuse me. So you can go to the next slide. So this fellowship for me served as basically a gentle introduction to the 4 points you see here. Software deployment as opposed to development. We focused more on the operations side than the development side of DevOps. And Chris basically broke it down for me in 3 stages, and I'm going to go over a little bit about the tasks he set out, an example of a roadblock that I ran into, and then what the solution is that we came to. In doing that, I was exposed to a bunch of new tools and their associated vocabulary. Some were new to me, some I had used a little bit before. Let's see, I used throughout the process SSH, Git and GitHub, Docker, Nginx, Kubernetes, and a variety of command line tools as needed, ones that came packaged with those technologies, and others that were used for troubleshooting purposes. I got exposure to working with a team and a mentor. That was a bit new to me in 2 ways. When it comes to working with a team, it was new in that I got to collaborate with other technical professionals in real time. I got to talk to other humans and work on the same project together. And the concept of working with a team was also new in that I was coming in and getting involved with something where 99.99% of the work had already been done by a variety of other people. This was not a pet project that I had built from the ground up, that I more or less, understood all the ins and outs of. So I was coming into something that was unfamiliar to me and had to learn to work my way around. And working with a mentor was helpful in that regard. And lastly, this was an opportunity to solidify the new knowledge that I acquired throughout the course of the fellowship, mainly through the blog post that we had to submit last week and the presentation that you're hearing now. This was sort of a way of keeping us honest, making us think, what have I actually learned over the past 2 months. So I'm going to go into a little bit of that now. So you can go to the next slide. The first thing Chris had me do was, I should say, when I was learning all this stuff, this was all in the context of the Prevention Point application, which Giannis and Sarah have already talked about. So I was always working with the Prevention Point application. And we started off with me just getting it deployed locally on my machine. And Chris tasked me with generating SSH keys on my laptop, cloning the Prevention Point repo off GitHub, installing Docker, launching and building the app, and accessing it in my browser. And this was mostly painless, but the issue I ran into, so the most notable issue I ran into here was, sort of the very last thing when I launch it with Docker. I've read, Docker 101. I feel like I understand it pretty well. And then I go, to fire up the browser, and, I get this page isn't working. And, I go back and make sure I've done stuff with Docker correctly. And I think I have. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure I have. Then eventually, I said to Chris, I said, hey, I've tried X, Y, and Z. What's going on here? And this was a situation where I forgot the whole RTFM rule. I had done my homework with Docker, but I had not actually read the Prevention Point README. And rather than building each component separately with Docker, the work had already been done for me, and I just needed to execute Docker Compose up in the terminal, then refresh the browser, and all was right in the world. So we can go to the next slide. The next thing he talked about was, okay, now that we have things running locally, let's get them running remotely, and let's put a reverse proxy in front of the app, and give ourselves a little bit more control over what's coming in. So the tasks he gave me, not terribly different from what we did when deploying it locally. Chris had set up a VM for me, and then he had me SSH into the VM, repeat the steps that I'd used for deploying it locally, and this was sort of the added step in addition to working in the terminal with a remote machine, was to install Nginx and configure it to function as a reverse proxy. And then again, ultimately with the goal of being able to put the VM's IP into a browser and getting the app's dashboard to appear. And the noteworthy roadblock that I ran into this time that ended up being more challenging, at the risk of throwing Chris under the bus. He didn't have an immediate answer for what I had done wrong this time. So this was something we got to sort of puzzle out together. It took us a little bit of troubleshooting to get there. I kept running into this issue where I was getting a connection reset, and I learned that this is what made troubleshooting difficult for me, and where Chris was a big help, was that a whole variety of things can cause a connection reset, from browser compatibility to simple to complicated networking issues that are outside of your machine and your server. There could be issues with the server configuration. There could be problems with the app itself. So I was sort of not knowing where to start troubleshooting. So after a couple afternoons of stumbling around, I came to him. I said, I'm having this connection reset issue. We exchanged messages back and forth in Slack for a little bit, and finally we got on a Google Meet session. Actually worked on it in real time, and ultimately we ended up needing to put one, in hindsight, fairly simple snippet of code in the right location within the right file. But we had to make sure we had the port right, and there were within Nginx there were sites available and sites enabled, and there was a couple there's a configuration file and a configuration directory. So that was to me, that was an interesting challenge that had a little bit more ambiguity to it, and was satisfying when it worked. So we can go to the next slide. And then the last thing we talked about, which is sort of what the goal is for the Prevention Point application, was to get it onto a cloud platform and use Kubernetes, so it can be more easily scaled and maintained in a production environment. And Chris wanted me to start by just going to the Kubernetes website, working through their Kubernetes basics tutorial, which was, seemed straightforward enough. Then he wanted me to go back to deploying the app locally, but using Kubernetes, using Minikube. And then once, that was working, basically repeat what I had just done on Minikube, but, this time using an actual cluster that was hosted on Linode. And we ran into a lot of issues with translating the Docker files to Kubernetes files and using Minikube. And this was for me getting into more relatively advanced territory. I felt like I was actually troubleshooting a real issue. Minikube was installed okay. We had kube control going, and we were working with Compose, which, if you believe the Kubernetes website, neatly translates all of your Docker files to Kubernetes files. And we had all these these files and resources seemingly ready to go in Kubernetes, but they weren't working with Minikube. So then we went to Linode and tried working on that cluster instead, because there were tools available there using Kubernetes that are not available in Minikube. And Chris eventually discovered that we really need to, get one service linking the three different tiers of the application together, and then sort of have them all launch together under one deployment. And me trying a whole bunch of different things, and then sort of watching him tease out exactly what the issue is was instructive for me, because I got to see sort of what I considered to be real DevOps work actually happening. So the exact solution is actually sort of to be determined, which I'm okay saying, because we're looking forward to continuing to work on it. And the plan is actually tomorrow evening to get together and hopefully get a basic setup of the Prevention Point app running on a cloud platform using Kubernetes. So I guess we can go to the next slide at this point. So all of this learning, this new knowledge acquisition, took place within the context of this this fellowship. And I mentioned, teamwork and mentorship and the blogging and speaking before, but in the beginning. But this is really, I think, what made the fellowship worth doing, because you can always just learn new things by reading tutorials on the internet. But the fellowship is, really is what, should say, this other stuff is what breathed life into the things that were learned along the way. When it comes to teamwork, the meetings, our weekly meetings, they were friendly, they were collaborative, they were efficient. I haven't been part of a technical team since 2017, when I did another internship, and I wasn't sure what to expect because it had been quite some time. And I was happy to discover that I wasn't ever feeling intimidated or bored in meetings. They were, I think they happened with appropriate frequency, and when they did happen, they were of appropriate length. So that was a positive experience, and it left me feeling, encouraged and enthusiastic, and that much more excited about using this fellowship as a stepping stone to a career in the tech industry. Under the umbrella of teamwork, the mentorship aspect was, I think, for me, the most important part of the program. This pandemic, I think, has really emphasized. I know it has for me, and I think for a lot of us, that we're all social creatures, and the mentor-mentee relationship with Chris, it really made learning easier, more enjoyable, more efficient, and it helped to really establish a genuine connection with, not just another tech professional in the Philadelphia area that could be useful for networking in the future, but with another human being that I'm looking forward to working continuing to work with at Code for Philly. And it was an opportunity to balance or think about the balance between working independently and working with other people. What questions are appropriate for the internet, and what questions are appropriate to bring to someone else and say, hey, I've looked at this, that, and the other thing, and I think it's this, but I'm kind of stuck. And having someone that can get you unstuck rather than tearing your hair out for days on end. And lastly, the blogging and speaking, I thought, were great as a again, as a comprehension check, reviewing what you've learned, reflecting on it, and getting the opportunity to practice demonstrating it, both in writing and speaking, which are important skills, not just professionally, but in life. So that that was an aspect of it that I appreciated having to do, and the coaching was helpful as well. I know for me, in particular, the advice we got on blogging was helpful in organizing my thoughts for not just the blog post, but for this presentation. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, I stole the next steps slide from I think it was Giannis who made it first, and or maybe it was Sarah, I don't know. But so I threw in next steps as well. I'm looking forward to continued involvement with Code for Philly. I want to see the Prevention Point app sort of through and live and actually helping people. I feel like I've learned a lot during the fellowship. And I've gotten to apply that knowledge a little bit. I'm looking forward to applying it more. I would like the opportunity for further application within Code for Philly. So I'm looking forward to that. And professionally, I'm looking forward to being able to expand my job search from sort of generalist software engineering development roles to include DevOps positions. And no matter what I apply to, just being having my skill set be just a little bit broader and say, hey, I did this thing. I had professional experience. I got some paid experience, doing DevOps work. And, I think it will, make me that much more attractive as a potential employee. So, thank you, Chris, for your help, and thank you, Code for Philly, and I guess Comcast, and everyone for listening.
You're most welcome.
Yay! Good job, Bob. Does anybody have any questions for Bob?
Bob, it's not a question, but I just wanted to say that from your presentation, I understood that you did hit major roadblocks, but you persevered, and with the help of your mentor, you went through it. I personally can relate to that. I know what it feels like to be stuck. So I want to congratulate you. Kudos to you for sticking with it, going through it, and finally being successful. So that's you should be proud of yourself, man.
Thank you. It was a good exercise in asking questions. I'm someone who tends to like to do everything myself and can be a bit stubborn that way, but that's not always the most efficient way to get something done. So that was that was one of the major takeaways from this for me, is thinking about when's the appropriate time to go to someone else and say, hey, I've done X, Y, and Z, and I'm still stuck, and this is what I know, but I'm not sure how to still not sure how to make this thing work.
Are there any other questions for Bob? Does anybody else want to test his responses? I would actually like people to unmute for a second, because I want to reiterate that all three of these mentors were volunteering. None of them got paid for any of that work. And they were doing it because they are wonderful, amazing people who, when I asked them, all three of them immediately jumped and said yes, even though they have full-time jobs. And maybe this required them not only to mentor someone, but to also figure out how to do that stuff themselves in the first place. So if we could all just unmute for a second and applaud them. Woo! For all the amazing work that they did, and for giving of their time. And one of the great things is being co-director and for being able to strong arm Michael into letting me do things, is that I can foolishly waste our money and send you some classy 90s windbreakers for your efforts, because it makes me laugh, and also because they will not let me buy the t-shirt cannon that I keep wanting to get. I would also like to thank Pam Sell, who is on this call, for all of the work she did setting up our professional development experiences. I know I mentioned her at the beginning, but she did some amazing work. And it was just literally from a day where we were hanging out and I said, hey, do you want to work on this? And she said, yeah, I'll do it. And volunteered her time to get all of that done. So everybody, this is not one person's effort. This is not one person's doing. This is the community in tech in Philly being amazing and doing amazing things. So I just wanted to plug, if you want to work on any of the things that we're doing, you can find us at Code for Philly on Twitter. Julia, who is actually also on this, runs our Twitter account as our communications lead. You can find us at codeforphilly.org, where I will push the blog posts tomorrow. I didn't want to ruin anybody's presentations. And you can also find us on Meetup at Code for Philly. We post all of our Meetup events there, which many of you probably already know about that because you're here right now. So that seems weird that you wouldn't know that Meetup existed, but just in case you forgot, that's where we are. And also this is being pushed to YouTube Live. So everyone here is now a YouTube star because we have all of 7 followers. Anyways, this is the point at which I'd extend the voicemail that I'm leaving to another 20 minutes, but I'm going to cut myself off and just say thank you so much for listening to the presentations and for coming today and supporting these new peers in the industry. And if you have any questions, we're here. You can find us in Slack at coverphilly.org/chat. And thank you. Thank you. Everyone have a good night.
Thanks, Marika. Have a good one.
Thanks, Marika.
Bye.